Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to today's Product School Pro webinar. We're really excited to have Michal from Microsoft. She is a senior product manager there, and she's here to talk to us about innovation. So thank you so much, Michal, for being here. And whenever you would like, you can go ahead and take it away.
Okay, thank you, Nikki, so much. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Not sure where you guys are based. Thank you for coming. Today, I'm going to talk about shipping a simple innovation. Then I strongly believe that products need to be simple, otherwise users won't use them. So before we jump right in, I actually want to introduce myself. So let me just move the chat a little bit. Okay. I'm a senior product manager at Microsoft Teams. I'm specifically working on chat features inside Teams. I recently also relocated from Israel to the Bay Area in the US. I actually started my career as an analyst in a large venture capital fund in Israel. Then I wanted to be more involved in building products hands-on, so I joined Microsoft, where I started as a product in Microsoft Accelerator, brought my knowledge from VC and becoming a PM. After that, I was a PM lead at Cortana, which is Microsoft virtual assistant. And I think last April, in April last year, I joined the Microsoft Teams. So that's about me. I like to think about, the product role using the equivalent of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. After all, every product needs a strong foundation, whether it's fast performance, high quality, secured, accessible, working offline, and so on. Most of the PMs I work with are actually leading features that are more core to the product. So these are the features that are end-to-end must-haves. So for example, in Teams chat, we have a PM that drives the compose experience, or another PM who is responsible for emojis or stickers or notifications, and the rest of the core features. And most products at some point have also innovation features. Similar to how we see Maslow's theory, this is the product self-actualization, actually expanding the new business or introducing new offers beyond the core offer. So this is my portfolio breadth. As I said, I started my career working with startups and entrepreneurs, and that really shaped my product career and allowed me to become more of an entrepreneur for the products I work on. Don't get me wrong, of course, when we need to build innovation features, also, we need to take care of the foundation and core pieces in the same order and priority. But it's less about, opening the dashboard, tracking usage, and see what we need to improve for existing features, and more about leading new initiatives bottom up. So that sounds cool. But the problem is that at the beginning, most of the projects I actually worked on weren't shipped at all, and not just mine. I realized that most innovation projects, they get stuck in the execution phase and not make it to market. Or if they do, they actually see low usage. By the way, feel free to ask questions along the talk. The thing is that I think innovation is actually a buzzword. It sounds sexy. It's very trendy to talk about innovation, the future, AI, but that's actually not what's it about. Doing innovation is super challenging and costly to achieve. Which brings us actually to our starting point with what we like to call the Hollywood Fallacy. This is the way movies and TV shows and other forms of entertainment influence and anchor the way we see the world. And in our case, the way we see product innovation. I'm sure for many of us, innovation means algorithms and research and the daily work we do as PMs. But what really comes to mind when you think about innovation? You're welcome also to answer if you want or drop in the chat. It actually throws you to the most cliche ideas. By the way, Nikki, I don't see the chat, so if there's any message, let me know.
Will do.
Okay. So some of us might imagine a skyrocket taking us to space, or a virtual assistant that becomes our best friend. Others have more maybe pessimistic vision, anxiously waiting for the machine uprising. Either way, our brains have almost been trained to associate innovation with flying cars or robots, or flying cars being driven by robots. So obviously, it's none of this stuff. There's nothing wrong in going after those big, crazy concepts. I really think that thinking bigger is super important to be able to shoot high and be creative. But you should realize that about 85% of AI-based projects never make it to market. 85%, that's a lot. Think about all the money spent on those projects. There are many reasons why this happens, from management changing priorities to insufficient data sets. But there's another fundamental issue that sets these projects for failure before they even start. And that is trying to build too complicated experiences. People try to shroud projects in this veneer of complexity that makes them seem so smart and cool and so good. But let me tell you something. Users, they actually don't like innovation. They don't like changes. They prefer their comfort zone and what they are familiar with. Changing habits for users is not an easy task. I just need to remind myself how I react every time I see, for example, Facebook UI changes for me. It's really about a very simple understanding of the product value and user behavior. Going back to Maslow, which we talked in the beginning about, it's really about what users' habits can we change or leverage. If users will adopt innovation, they'll do it because it's intuitive and simple to use. So the user value is our goal, not the technology and innovation. And there's no secret sauce here, right? You need to measure, to experiment, and iterate, and all over again. At Cortana, for example, we focused on the advanced stack instead of finding the fit. We tried to introduce new value to users, but we didn't have clear business goals and alignment on what this value is. Users didn't understand what Cortana is about and why should they use it. Instead of establishing this base, we built these crazy advanced features that were super complicated to develop, like giving users automated insights on their calendar when they don't have quorum for a meeting or if there is an important meeting for them to attend. But how do you actually define or teach a model, what is important? Maybe there are less intelligent tools that can answer this. Another example is actually Google Glass, which might have come too soon. This was a project that Google released about 10 years ago. They were overpriced. They had a lot of issues around privacy, and Google had eventually to withdraw the project eventually. So why is innovation important? It actually allows product and company to drive a new product or feature ideas beyond the core offering, serving as a growth engine for the company by either increasing customer acquisition and retention, which are two very important metrics that are also related, right? Having more users returning to use the product means they're more likely to either pay for the product or invite their friends, for example, and by that increasing the customer acquisition. So think about it just as a loop. The other reason for driving innovation is to introduce a market differentiator or to have some competitive advantage. So take Instagram stories, for example. They started after Snapchat introduced stories in their app. So Instagram identified the opportunity and had a goal to increase posting on their feed. The user problem here is that usually the bar for posting a post is super high, and users spend a lot of time refining the post and the pictures, applying filters and whatnot. So they're not posting very often as Instagram PMs wanted them to. And stories came right in time. They have expiry and they manage actually to lower the bar for posting a story. So the consequences was that users are actually engaging in Instagram more. Let's take a look about Netflix recommendation engine. It's personalized for a specific user. It shows what most people are watching. So you actually won't miss tomorrow's conversation. And it's actually based on the performance. So for example, that user watched Narcos through the end. So it recommends on similar titles to Narcos. The engine actually filters over 3,000 titles at a time using more than 1,000 recommendation clusters based on the user preferences. It is so accurate that 80% of Netflix viewer activity is driven by this personalized recommendation engine. And this engine actually led for a strong retention. And it's also differentiated their experiences among Disney and other content streaming services. So this is a really good example for innovation that actually succeeded. So we said that innovation actually equals growth. You cannot grow without having the core and fit first. Establish a base for a benchmark for a healthy growth is that is actually data-driven. You need to understand what happens, what impacts what, where's your product heading business-wise. It's not about my idea or others. It's about looking at data and deciding what do we want to optimize. If we don't find this fit first, there's a risk of being off track and fall in love with our ideas. And when this happens, we stop listening to others, especially to customers. So there are no shortcuts here. Now let's talk practical. How do we actually make it real and turn ideas into real products? I'd like to take you through the way I recently went in one of my current projects at Microsoft Teams and talk about the decision-making we had along the way. So about 2 months ago, we announced a private preview of live components in Teams chat, which are essentially collaborative messages. Live components basically offer a new way to ideate, create, and make decisions together. So the user can send a component, like a table or a task list or a paragraph, that everyone in the chat can edit inline and see changes as they are made. You can see exactly here in this screenshot that multiple people are editing at the same time, very similar to how collaborative docs are working. We show you the full end-to-end experience here. We release this both on desktop and on mobile. So actually a user sends a component into chat. It looks like a regular message and everyone can edit. You can see exactly who's editing. You can see this happens real time. You cannot mention others, just like a regular message. And you can also copy and paste it into a different chat if you want to continue collaboration with more people. Right after us, Google announced a very similar concept that proved us that there is a demand for it. They haven't released it yet. So this is pretty much a new offer to the market, right? Users are not used to this capability. They're not familiar with it. We have a lot of work to do in order to educate them as well. But I want to talk for a sec, like how do we actually get there? How do we actually build and ideate on this solution? So let's talk about how it all started. We talked about having a product market fit before starting to innovate. So in 2019, Teams actually surpassed Slack usage. This was a turning point for the product, as it finally had its official fit. The Teams core offer at the time was about internal communication at work, meetings, chat, channels, and calling. Then it was time to grow. As we said, we passed we found the market fit, and to expand Teams offer, which is the one that you see now on the screen, a hub for communication and collaboration across companies, school, and life. And there are tons of initiatives that are happening at the moment. So for example, shared channels. This allows teams from different companies to collaborate in a shared space in Teams. Or Teams for Life, which was released in May. This allows users to collaborate with their friends and families in personal projects. So then we had like a new challenge with this new mission that was introduced to us. How to actually bring collaboration into chat. Right, chat is actually a messaging experience. It's more about communication, less about collaboration. So we had to identify the opportunity here. Again, listening to our customers, see what they're asking. What do we know from data? Where the industry is moving, and obviously to follow our business goals. So we quickly learned how users perceive chat. So we mapped everything we knew. Like chat, users perceive it as a very private place, similar to a meeting in closed doors. They don't expect anything to go out of there unless they know about it. Chat is super instant, and it's hard to keep up with all the messages. And if they go up from the user's viewport, then it's much more difficult to be aware of them. People are actually sharing links to content. So think about it also as an aggregator of resources. And an interesting thing that there's some unstructured light collaboration happening, like tasks, follow-ups, and things that are more casual. And one more thing we actually learned is that obviously there is a big difference in use cases when user is a sender versus when a user is a recipient. So there are two different types of personas here. So we started asking how users actually collaborate in chat. What do they do today? What's the existing flow? We learned that they share links to documents, you can see here, and give feedback and instruction on those. But the collaboration document and the conversation are actually in two separated and disconnected canvas, right? They would usually share a link to a document in chat and then continue to edit the document from the relevant app. So think about it, a PowerPoint or an Excel spreadsheet, which obviously have their own apps. The other thing is that the conversation often doesn't reflect the state of the document. This was another thing we learned. So I can share a document with you and then to tell you, we need to maybe add this sentence, to this part. But I said it in chat. It might not be reflected in the cited document. Another challenge is that it's hard to focus the attention of the group because chat is very, very instant. And some of the common use cases that we found that users are doing in chat is around ideation, discussing agenda towards an upcoming meeting, collect inputs and feedback, check status, and more. Think about what you do today in chat at work. So we ran multiple user studies. And in one of those interviews, I had like an aha moment. I really remember the customer saying this, that not every collaboration actually worth the hassle of starting a doc, struggling where to save it, name it, copy link to share, and so on. I realized that our mind is actually used to collaborating documents, that this is the traditional way we are familiar with. So that's great when you want to do a P&L report or a review deck. But what if we want to do something that is super lightweight? So for example, what if I'm just organizing a picnic with my family? Do I really need to go through the multi-step saving flow and then send them a link so everyone can enter what they bring to this picnic? Sounds an overkill. So then we had an idea. Why can't we just edit together the same message instantly in chat? We had this interesting direction, but obviously this was just an idea or a hypothesis, if you may. We needed a team to start validating it and some funding around that. And we are part of a bigger product, right? We have more priorities, more things, more allocations. So like entrepreneurs building their startup from scratch, sell to investors or getting, hiring people. Working in innovation inside existing product means that you're also an entrepreneur. You have to sell it to leadership, get everyone's backup, have a team to execute with, and lead for action. So one of my favorite tools to use to prep for these type of things is actually running a design sprint. In case you're not familiar with it, it's based on Google Ventures method. It's basically a 5 days workshop to ideate and inspire to answer business questions through design and prototyping and validation. And I also think it's super fun because you get to do something, super creative that is out of our day-to-day. At the end of those 5 days, you basically turn and explore ideas and turn them into validated concepts. And what you get out of it, in addition to this validated concept, is also a team that engage with you. And you came with a proposal that you have everyone's backup inside the team, and you have something to pitch forward. So during the sprint, we came up with our core principles and value. The first one was really bite-sized collaboration. So we said that chat real estate is super limited and we don't want to overload it. The second was that it just works. No need to deal with saving, naming, and things like that. The third one was that users will have the ability to share components. So collaboration means that it should be extended to more audience and easy to do that. And the fourth one was that it has to be agile. So you start from chat, you build from there. It might be that lightweight collaboration will scale into a larger effort, and we don't want to limit the users. So a larger effort can be, from a small table, it can turn into a deck, for example. So we need to have this flexibility back and forth. The next super important thing was have the devs actually building a POC. And that helped us to demo to customers, and most importantly, estimate the technical feasibility and uncover many risks that we had. Like in every B2B product, you should think about both the IT admin, as they're the ones who eventually decide if this experience is turned on or off in their tenants. And of course, the end users who use the product on an ongoing basis. So, new product, new problems. As we said, innovation is not something cheap or easy to achieve. We had problems around discovery, how users, are getting familiar and educated about this capability. How do they get notified about changes that are happening in this, especially if, the message itself is out of their viewport? How do you make sure it's super fast and easy, just like sending a text message to chat? Where the content is stored? How do people get awareness for this important content inside this chat? How do you apply permissions? People are used to have content that is specifically for the chat members, not to everyone. Search, how do you recall this content going forward? Is it a message? Is it a file? What do we do with it? So lots of good questions. And I do want to quickly drill into one of the problems that we encountered around permissions. So the problem was that, as we said, on one hand, chat messages are super private and can only be seen by people in the chat. On the other hand, we have live components that we wanted them to be easily portable across chats and accessible. So we don't want people to actually deal with permissions, but there need to be some level of guarding about this content. So we defined goals. One was that users clearly understand who has access to this content. And the other one was to reduce friction and anxiety in collaborating with other users. So it's not about, oh, this can be shared outside this chat, who has access. It's actually more about a positive sentiment. Let's invite people to collaborate. And this was an important state of mind to remember. So the solutions we explored was to actually leverage an existing model we already have in chat, which is the files model. People already share files from the cloud, and those files can be accessed by many people in the organization, not necessarily people in the chat. So we decided to leverage these files model permissions, which made it actually much more easy in the technical implementation as well. And we also wanted to communicate the message to users and show who has access to this content. What we didn't want to do is show an error banner that could be interpreted like an error or a warning, because again, this will imply for a negative sentiment, which we wanted to avoid. So the bottom line here is that you need to lead for action to really minimize risks and get customers' feedback all the time. One more thing to note is that innovation is adopted in stages. It often requires a lot of time and resources to succeed and has low probability of success. That's why taking the time to iterate with users is so important. And in our case, for live components, we've been working with customers who take part, for example, in Teams private preview program. We send out surveys, we did interviews, A/B testing, and a lot of things. Like, the goal here is not to GA as soon as possible, it's actually to get feedback and iterate and and deliver a better experience. But when innovation does succeed, there's often high rewards involved. So in our example, we already see high and very stable weekly retention for this specific feature. And we also see how it contributes to collaboration actions in Teams. So in Microsoft Teams, we're measuring our success not just by the MAU and usage, but also how deep the usage is, how many collaboration actions user take. So collaboration actions can be, for example, sharing a screen or starting a meeting, not just about general interaction with the app. And live components is one of the main drivers for this, and we see like deep engagement for users on collaboration. So just to summarize, as we started this, remember to ship simple innovation. It's not about the cool, it's about keeping it simple. And if it's useful, it will work. So thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.